This week in the Dorchester Reporter, there's news about a hopeful sign for business in Fields Corner, an agreement on rent increases near the Fairmount Indigo line, and a presidential endorsement. To fill us in as the Reporter's managing editor and publisher, Bill Forry. Thank you very much for joining us, Bill. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Bill, I want to start with really where we left off a couple of weeks ago when Dorchester was generating some of the highest figures in the positive test rates for the coronavirus in Boston. And I guess we're still stuck in that, aren't we?
Yes, Chris, the latest numbers have just come out today, kind of looking toward in the past here for over the last week. So, of course, some of these, the statistics are crunched and then we get them and they may be a few days old or more. But the latest data we have says that Dorchester is once again leading the city in COVID positivity testing. So 02122 and 02124, those two zip codes in Dorchester are now at 11.9%. The other parts of Dorchester in 02121, 02125 are at 10.1. And overall citywide, it's at 7.8. So these numbers keep going up incrementally each week. Dorchester is at the top of the list, whereas East Boston had been for much of the earlier part of the crisis, Chris. Not good numbers here. And the mayor will be talking more today about what this means and what it could mean for schools and businesses, et cetera, but definitely going in the wrong direction.
Well, one thing we've been hearing from city and state officials, and that means both about Boston and the rest of the state, is that this seems to be still a lot of younger people who are getting infected at this point, and maybe things are being passed on through family gatherings. Is that what you think might be the case here too?
We're hearing a lot about the concern about people just having too many people in their homes who aren't part of their household. With Halloween coming up this weekend, it's typically a time for people to interact, obviously, trick-or-treating. The mayor has been clear that he doesn't want people doing direct contact, passing out candy, etc. Really, the message from both the mayor and the governor this week has been to discourage family gatherings of any large number, especially people who aren't part of your household typically. And so, yeah, that's the message that's going out. Certainly, people in the younger demographic continue to be the target of criticism from city and state government about, not doing their part well enough. But everybody needs to get the message that for the holiday season in particular, it's not going to be a good idea to congregate.
Right. Well, speaking of congregating, this is not the best time of any season, really, to talk about getting people into stores. But at least in Fields Corner, there is more to choose from.
There is, Chris. Dorchester is now home to its second Target store. Target, of course, has a big box store, about 100,000 square foot store at South Bay. But last Wednesday, the franchise opened its latest location in the Fields Corner Shopping Plaza, which is right there at Geneva Ave and Dorchester Ave. It's a 27,000 square foot store, so much, much smaller. It's part of a national trend that Target is trying, which is smaller format stores, more of a neighborhood setting. They have one in Beacon Hill that just opened this week, and there's another one in Rosendale that's been open. So, but this is the one now in Fields Corner, and I was in the store this week, Chris, and it looks terrific. It's not super busy yet, but it shows that, for one thing, it shows some confidence in the Dorchester market from this national conglomerate, and they spent a lot of money to renovate this space. And it's not the only thing that's going on there, too. There's another big development in the Fields Corner Shopping Plaza, which is that Price Right, the supermarket chain Price Right, will be opening a store later this year. In fact, probably before Christmas. They were targeting Thanksgiving, but it looks like it's going to drag into December. That's going to be a 20,000 square foot grocery store. And it's very much needed there. Fields Corner has been without a supermarket since last January when America's Food Basket closed. The Slosby family, which runs Save-A-Lot stores elsewhere in the region, has taken it over. They spent upwards of $2 million, Chris, to renovate the space. I was in that space this week as well. a lot of the work that they put into this, you won't be able to see because it had to do with infrastructure and plumbing and electricity. But it's going to be basically a brand new space for this Price Right brand, which is the first one of its kind in Dorchester. Look for it to open before the end of the year.
And imagine this is good for people who might not have cars or the options of going farther away to get a good selection of food.
Yeah, Chris, you know that neighborhood well. You're talking Bowdoin, Geneva, Fields Corner, Melville Park, St. Mark's area. There's a huge audience right within walking distance of the Fields Corner Shopping Plaza. And that's one of the reasons that, even in bad times, Chris, I talked to Tom Sofrino this week, who has been managing that mall since 1976. And so Tom's seen ups and downs throughout those decades. They've never really had a vacancy problem at Fields Corner Mall. They've had a lot of shifting brands and stores that didn't work and they closed, but there was quickly new ones to replace them, as in the case of Target here. So there's a lot of demand from these retailers to be here. I think it's because they know that market that's there within walking distance is a viable one, and that does say some good things about the neighborhood, Chris.
Phil, your paper also reported on an agreement to limit rent increases at Morton Village Apartments, about 200 units near the Fairmount Indigo line, for a period of 5 years. Put that into context, because there are all these ads out there for houses, condos, and apartments along that line, and I've seen some pretty big spikes in prices. So this looks like it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. I think it's a good signal that this new owner, which bought the property back in July, they're called Avanath Capital. They're a national chain of they own property all over the country. And when they bought it, the tenants there, there's 207 units at Morton Village. They were quite worried. They thought that they would see a repeat of what's happening elsewhere in the city, where new ownership is coming in and jacking up prices, rebranding housing, trying to make it more essentially gentrified. And in this instance, Avanath Capital sat down with the group of tenants who were very well organized. City Life Vita Urbana was very much involved in this in the negotiation. So was Greater Boston Legal Services. The city's Department of Neighborhood Development pitched in, and they worked it out. So the deal is basically a 5-year deal, which promises no more than a 3% per year rent increase for any existing tenants over the next 3 years. That goes up a bit to 3.25 for the remaining time frame. And importantly for seniors, anyone over 70, I should say, they'll stay at 3% for the whole 5-year period. So that's something that the residents feel good about. They think of it as a huge victory for them, and I think they're right. The problem is this isn't happening everywhere. There are other properties of even bigger sizes in Mattapan, in Dorchester, that have changed ownership, and they haven't been able to break through. I think City Life Vita Urbana and other allies on tenants feel like this will be a good example to show other landlords, especially now during this COVID period where things are so turbulent for both sides, that there is a route towards making an accord happen.
I want to ask you about presidential politics, because it's been a while since a Republican president like Ronald Reagan could feel he could get a welcome at the Erie Pub in Adams Village. But what about Dorchester in the 21st century?
Right. Well, so Chris, the most frequent question I've been getting the last week or so from folks is, how many precincts will Donald Trump win in Dorchester? And my answer is very quickly, he's not going to win any precincts in Dorchester, and he's not going to win any precincts in the city of Boston. We know this, or I can project that, because in 2016, Trump-Pence won 0 precincts in the city of Boston that time. All the polling data we've seen from Massachusetts says Trump-Pence, they're doing even worse this time around with voters. And I think the Joe Biden Kamala Harris ticket has, a lot to do with that, but it's also a big anti-Trump vote here, honestly. Trump won about 13% of the city of Boston in 2016. I think he'll be lucky to break 10% this time. There's a lot of attrition in his support, not only because of his behavior, but because of COVID and the way it's been mismanaged clearly by this administration. So all of those signals to me say, it's good. It was always going to be a wipeout in Boston and in Dorchester too. It's going to be even worse than it probably would have been. And the last Republican ticket to win precincts in Dorchester was McCain, Palin back in 2008, 16-9, which is the Kenney School in Adams Corner, broke for McCain over Barack Obama. But you know what? Trump didn't win that precinct last time around, and he isn't going to win it this time either.
So, which of course prompts the question: why even bother to write an editorial endorsing one ticket or another?
You know, Chris, sometimes we do wonder whether that's even necessary. I think it's just, this is a historic moment, and not speaking out and making it clear where we stood seemed like the wrong thing this time. I'll note too, the Boston Herald wrote an endorsement of Trump this week, which really struck me as inauthentic and kind of a fraudulent voice, because they're not even in Boston anymore. The Herald is based out of suburban Boston somewhere, and you know, the city is going to break probably 85% plus for Joe Biden. So, you know, voices out of the city that are rooted here like ours, you know, we can speak up to. It's plain that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to sweep Boston on Tuesday.
Of course, the next question that comes to mind is why even bother to vote? But what are you hearing out in the neighborhood? Are people turning out? Do they still feel it's worth the effort to get out there and cast a vote?
Yes. Yes. People are eager to vote. I mean, we've seen that in the numbers of people who've shown up to vote early so far, more than 45,000 people to date. There's still another day today where you can cast your vote. If you're watching on Thursday here, you can vote still at Florian Hall or Mildred Ave today in Mattapan. So, you know, that is an indicator. The appetite, and everybody I'm running into is talking about, they've been eager to do something to do their part here, and that's coming, if they haven't done it already, on Tuesday.
All right, well, thank you very much, Bill. We should mention finally that if people want to keep up with even later developments, you've got the feed, you've got the website for the paper. So how should people go looking for that?
Thanks. You can go to .news.com, and on election night, you can follow our Twitter feed at .news, because we will have early returns from bellwether precincts showing kind of the what I expect will be the landslide for Biden-Harris. But it's interesting to see those early numbers, get an indicator of what's happening. So you can follow us at .news that evening for real-time results.
Right. Well, thank you very much again for taking the time to join us.
Thanks, Chris.
That was Bill Forry from the Dorchester Reporter. We'll have more news in just a moment.